Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're going to be taking a look at r/ProRevenge, where we have two excellent stories of revenge against cheaters. And trust me, ladies and gentlemen, you will not want to miss this one. Let's begin. Cheat on me with my best friend? I'll make sure you regret it. Posted by Reddit user VoodooGWA.
About 6 to 7 years ago, while I was still a mere student, a friend of mine broke up with his girlfriend in the most well-thought way I've ever seen with my own eyes, or rather heard with my ears for the climax. But still, let's start with a little backstory. They met each other during high school and got together a year before this story, and they were a really nice couple for a long time. He, let's call him John, was the kind of guy who was fairly handsome, a good student, and on top of that, one of the nicest people in our class. She, Jane, was objectively beautiful, long brown hair, nice silhouette from horse riding almost her entire life. She even had her own horse that she got as a pony colt filly years ago. She was pretty nice if you were her friend, even if she could be a little witch from time to time, but she was way worse with those she didn't saw as friends. So almost half of the class that was comically almost divided in two, even physically, by how we sat in the classroom. John's best friend, Jim, also fake, but let's keep the J string going, was also in our class, and he also had a crush on Jane during high school because she was hard to miss and pretty popular, but she chose John, and that was the end of it for him. He had girlfriends too after that. Everything was fine. But during our second year of BTS, French diploma after high school, Jane's behavior drifted more and more toward the naggy and not as pleasant side she rarely showed before, all the while becoming a little bit more flirty with guys, especially Jim, who she knew had a crush on her in high school. Not often, and never when John could see, but she liked the attention you can get when you don't turn down guys who hit on you immediately, like at a nightclub, for example. It never got really far, and even if we told John she was less nice to be around than before, he still loved her, so it didn't bother him too much. But he did try to calm her a little bit after we talked about that. Then during Christmas holidays, that they each spent with their respective family like they did every year, Jane and Jim went to a party together, which wasn't that unusual since they were both amongst the frequent partygoer in our class, since they lived in the same town, and it was hosted by a common friend from high school. John couldn't come because he was catching up with his cousins he didn't saw for months that evening. I don't have a lot of details, but Jane and Jim got hammered during that evening, and all the flirting ended up with her pulling him into a room where they wrestled. When he realized what happened the next morning after sobering up, Jim was mortified and drove all the way to John's house to tell him what happened, that he was so sorry, he would never have done that sober, yada yada yada. He even told John to hit him if he wanted to, and he wouldn't fight back, because even if John wasn't a slob, Jim was almost a head taller than him, and really strong too. Fortunately, their friendship went back to elementary school, and John knew he was telling the truth, especially since he was a little bit more careful with how Jane acted after some of us talked about her, and he saw that she could get a bit too flirty with him. It did took some time for him get over it, but they are still friends to this day, as far as I know. New Year's Eve was the next time he saw Jane, and he asked her about what happened at that party, but she freaked out and asked him how he could believe she would do something behind his back, and she wasn't a 304. That Jim drooled over her since high school, and he tried to take advantage of her while she was drunk, but only got a kiss. Not even with a moment of hesitation. He acted like he believed her and apologized, spent a nice evening, and started plotting his revenge. They started dating at the end of last January, so their anniversary was coming up, and this is when he would do it. He had a key to her apartment, so while she was out all afternoon preparing for the evening, he really made the place look fantastic. She came home to a trail of rose petals leading to a table lit only by a few candles, while a soft music was playing. John really liked to cook, and as expected, the diner was amazing, with a handmade salad of different vegetables cut in balls and glazed in oil. Honestly, I ate with him once. His dishes looked like those of a 4-star restaurant, and the main plate, a nice juicy steak. After a few bites, he asked her how it was, and when she told him she loved it, he said, "See, I told you you would love horses even in your plate." She wasn't a vegetarian, but she took the "I like horses as family, not as meals" sentence literally with her horse. She dropped her fork and became white as a ghost before springing to her feet, running for the bathroom while frantically screaming incoherent noises since she was already beginning to vomit the meat she just ate. Sadly for her, he had duct taped the lid of the toilets shut and put the braid Jane used to tie in her horse's mane on the seat. She just broke down crying, curled up on the floor where the barf was slowly dripping from the seat, repeating, "My horse, you bastard, my poor horse." He calmly finished his horse steak, then picked up his things, told her he knew she cheated since the day after it happened, that they were breaking up and, oh, happy anniversary, then left. The meat was of course not her horse. He was angry at her, but he isn't a psychopath, even if it was horse meat, which is pretty good, at least for my taste. But the braid was indeed the real thing, but hair grow back. It took her half a week to realize her horse was fine, since she remained locked up in her apartment for days, when a friend called her to ask why she wasn't here riding with them one afternoon. TLDR, girl cheats on guy, guy makes her believe she eats her horse she owned for years, and break up with her. Edit, it seems that I shouldn't rush my writing. I tried to make it clearer. Another edit, people seem to have trouble reading the whole thing. I admit my English isn't perfect, but the part in bold is correct, or at least understandable. Obviously, all names are fictional.
Goddamn, OP. Are you sure John isn't a psychopath? I mean, it takes a very special kind of evil to let someone believe that they're eating their beloved pet. That's fucking brutal. I like it. I guess John wasn't really horsing around? Huh? I'll shut up now. I thought she was checking in for a one-night stand. Boy, was I wrong. Posted by Reddit user Blazia.
I posted this originally on r/Tales from the Front Desk and was told I should share it on here as well. This is some secondhand revenge, as I was more of a spectator than anything else. Enjoy and let me know if I might be on the wrong revenge subreddit. Note, this is pre-corona/stay-at-home/quarantine. Distressed passengers, flight passengers from an airline who had to cancel or delay a flight for whatever reason and have been redirected to a hotel to stay at while they wait for the next flight, however long that might be. I'd been working as a front desk agent for about a week. It's my first time working at a hotel, so I'm still learning the ropes, even though I'd previously worked as a check-in agent for a cruise line. I'm working the afternoon shift, and things have been pretty slow, couple of check-ins here and there, and that's about it. It's about 7 p.m. when this lady, we'll call her Libby, comes in, and after talking things out at the valet, makes her way over to me. We exchange greetings, and she tells me she would like to reserve a room, but only for a couple of hours. Obviously, we're not a motel, so I let her know the minimum of time she could reserve a room for would be a full night. After asking what the price would be, $240, which is way too much for the kind of hotel I work at, by the way, she agrees and hands me her credit card. This is where things get weird. As soon as I ask her for ID to make the reservation, Libby backtracks and says that she doesn't want her name anywhere on the reservation and would like to make it under the name of the guy who would be joining her later instead. I pause for a moment, and after asking her again if she was planning on using the room as well, I tell her that I at least need to put her name into the accompanying list for the room. I reassure her that only the employees would be able to see said list, and that no, the guy she was planning to meet wouldn't see it. I would like to make it very clear that throughout this whole interaction, Libby has been super composed, kind, and understanding. At this point, however, I'm just thinking she's here for a one-night stand and doesn't want the dude to know anything about her because she's probably married or something, which I can work with, sure, but why not just actually get a motel lady? This theory of mine is further solidified when Libby asks me to make a note in the reservation so that, if any point we need to address her by name around the dude, we wouldn't call her by her real name, and instead, she gives me a fake name, or so I thought, to address her by. At this point, I'm obviously bewildered, but still trying to be accommodating and trying really hard not to let it show how much I'm trying to figure out what the heck is going on. We go through the rest of the check-in process, and she even goes as far as showing me a pic of the dude, so I'll know who he is when he comes in. I hand her the key, and she heads to her room. About an hour later, mystery dude walks in. Let's call him Jake. My coworker, who has no clue of anything, ends up checking him in, so I don't really get to see much of Jake. To be honest, at this point, I still wasn't giving the whole thing much thought, other than, that's a bit weird. Not even 30 minutes have passed since Jake went up when Libby comes back down and hands me both keys. They'd both received one each, says thank you in the most serious yet cordial way, and then walks off. Multiple thoughts went through my mind as this lady was making her way to the valet. That was way too fast, even for a quickie. Why the heck did she give me 2 keys? Where's Jake? Libby, please tell me you didn't murder Jake. Security is standing behind me, staring Libby down, probably having the same thought process as I am. The supervisor for security usually spends the night hanging out at the front desk. My coworker and I are whispering with each other, still trying to figure out what the heck happened, because that did not look like a lady who had just had a pleasant romp in the sheets. Cue Jake coming down the stairs, and okay, we can breathe. He's not dead. Now what happened next, we couldn't see because we suddenly had an onslaught of distressed passengers. So I thought I wouldn't find out what the heck had actually happened between Libby and Jake. But then, the worker from the valet came over, and boy did he have some tea to spill. Turns out that Libby had gone as far as asking valet guy to park her car in a way that the license plate wouldn't be visible. Why? Because turns out that Jake is Libby's husband. And you might be asking yourself by this point, why has this lady gone through so much trouble to hide anything that might give her identity away from her husband? Well, dear reader, because the alias that Libby gave me just so happened to be the name of the girl Jake was cheating on her with. This woman, somehow, got her cheating-ass husband to believe that his girlfriend had booked them a sweet, sweet night at the hotel, only for him to show up and find his wife sitting on the bed instead. This badass of a woman came back downstairs after probably massacring the heck out of this idiotic boy with not a hair out of place, and calmly had the valet bring both of their cars back, and then patiently waited for Jake to get his sorry ass back to the lobby so that she could extend her hand and demand their house keys from him. She then got into her car and just drove away. The only thing that would have made this even better was if Jake's girlfriend had also been there to tear into him as well. I like to think she had a part to play in this whole thing, since how else would Libby have managed to trick him into getting to the hotel? Point is, this woman is all I aspire to be. TLDR, badass woman tricked her cheating husband into thinking his girlfriend had booked them a night at a hotel, only for him to walk in and find her instead.
Wow, that is one cold and calculated move from the wife. I can only imagine what she will do to him during the divorce. May God have mercy on his soul. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.